right, we're back here on Community Focus. Kenny Fogel here with you on Channel 6 TV, and glad you could be with us. We got the train approaching from the backside of us. We're at the Kentucky Railway Museum in New Haven, Kentucky. And I got Greg Matthews here with us today. And Greg, I don't know the exact title, director or what's
executive director.
Executive director of the Kentucky Railway Museum. And before we get into too much of what's going on here right now, give us a little bit of history of the Railway Museum. I know it was in Louisville for a while before it came here.
It's been around since 1954. It was organized by members of the L&N Railroad, retirees, and others. And it was in Eva Bandman Park, right down on the riverfront, just east of downtown, next to Beargrass Creek. That was not a great place for it. They didn't have enough room, and it used to flood on a regular basis. So around the late 70s, early 80s, they moved from there out to eastern Jefferson County along the CSX L&N main line out in Ormsby Station. And they were there until around 1990, and they had to leave there because the county was developing that property. And they bought the railroad between Lebanon Junction and New Hope, and they've been here since 1990.
Now, Greg, I'm assuming that you know a little bit about railroads or maybe have a little background with the railroads.
Oh, a little bit. My great-grandfather came over from Scotland when he was 8 in 1850, and he built steamboats for the Howard Steamboat Company and then did the Pullman cars for the L&N shops in Louisville. And then my father worked at the L&N shops before the war, and I got interested in it because I got a Christmas present when I was 5, or at least I was told it was my present, of a Lionel train set, but it seemed that my dad and the uncles played with it an awful lot before I got to get
I had one of them myself when I was young, and I wish I still had it. I don't know whatever happened to it, but that was fascinating.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Well, about the museum here now, it has been in New Haven for a while, and it has grown considerably. Now, it's probably been, I hate to admit it, but it's probably been 4 or 5 years since I've been here, and just in that little bit of time, it's changed a lot. How often should somebody come to see this place change?
Well, at the rate things are going right now, they need to come on a pretty regular basis. We've got several projects in line, besides putting the model trains back in operation in here. Once we get a decision on the other building that was damaged in the flood in 2010, we'll move a lot of displays in there. The historic railroad turntable that used to be down on the riverfront in Louisville, where the Bats Stadium is located now, is sitting back here on a couple of flat cars. It's going to be put in the ground over here across the street within about the next 6 to 8 months. And that was built in 1811, so that's a historic piece of equipment. We've got a number of other pieces of equipment that are being refurbished. The steam engine, number 152, we're raising money for it, and any donations are accepted to get it back in operation within a couple of years. And in general, we're adding things as fast as we can to the museum, as well as activities.
Now, on a steam engine, would you have to redo a whole boiler system, or how would that work?
Every 15 years, irregardless of how much you use the steam engine, you have to tear it down. It has to be x-rayed, microwaved, taken apart to comply with the Federal Railway Administration regulations on pressure vessels. So it was in service for 15 years. Now it's out of service until they take it apart and do all that work, and then they put it back together, and it's good for another 15 years.
I learn something new every day when you come here. Again, I know you're always having events down here. As we're taping right now, I know we're right in the middle of your one of the biggest events of the year, the Thomas the Train.
Yep. Thomas is here. He'll be here. He was the past weekend. He'll be the next weekend, and probably about 10,000 of his best friends that are about this tall descend upon the place going, "Thomas, Thomas," which is a big event. We have dinner trains about once a month. We have train robberies. We have Easter trains. We've got Halloween trains. A lot of trains at Christmas time for the North Pole and Santa Express. So there's a lot for families to see and do, and we add to it and tweak it every year to make the experience much as pleasurable as we can for the visiting public.
Now let's go back to a part you just mentioned, near and dear to my heart, and that's got something to do with eating. Now you do say you have a dining train once a month.
We do have a dining train once a month, and it's also available for charters if people want to bring a large group and do that on a regular basis. The Sherwood Inn provides most of the food, and a lot of these dining trips are also in conjunction with murder mysteries that we have here. So they'll start off in the Sherwood Inn having a great meal. The murder mystery starts in the Sherwood Inn, then they get on the train for dessert and drinks, and the murder mystery continues on the train. So there are things for adults, there are things for kids, so good food, good times.
That's absolutely. As you mentioned, we've got the toy train. I call it a toy, but that's much more than a toy to me. But you got all kinds of displays around here, bicycles and things. And I guess one of these bicycles is the type it looks like it's fit for a railroad.
That's what that was. That was an inspection bicycle that a railroad superintendent would ride on, and it would set up on the rails, and he would pedal it like a bicycle and go check the track in his area. Yeah.
Absolutely. Like I said, you got all kinds of other displays on the wall, things that just from the past. I mean, it's just history that people have. If somebody hadn't preserved it, it would probably be in the back of somebody's garage or in a landfill somewhere. That's the sad part.
Absolutely. You look up here, you have representative types of trains going all the way back to the early 1900s. You've got Buddy L, you've got O-Gauge, you've got carved wooden trains, you've got various things depicting the history of railroading, as well as model and toy trains.
Well, your average person that comes through here, and I hate to use the word average because that could be applied to a lot of people, but you have a lot of train buffs come through here, or just mainly people that just curious as what's going on here?
You get those as well. You get a lot of tourists that come through, but you get mostly families with children. We have a lot of school trips. Out there on the wall, as you come into this room, behind the banner for storytelling, which is up there right now, we've got two maps, a world map and a United States map, and people can put pins up there of the area that they're from. And it's covered with pins from about 50 or 60 foreign countries and about every state in the Union. So when people come in, they can take a pin and put it up there, I'm from West wherever, and put their mark up on the map.
Is this part of Americana you think that we're losing right now, or you think we're going to have trains around for a while, I'm sure, but a lot of them, like the locomotives and some that we've seen before, especially the steam engines you talked about, we're not going to see that anymore.
Well, unfortunately, the people who worked on the railroads back when we were growing up are fewer and fewer, and the people who did that kind of work are fewer. But really, there's been a renaissance in terms of historic and preservation and so forth. In the last few years, there have been anywhere between 6 and 12 steam engines that have been reworked and put back into service. 152 is waiting its turn. 611 just came out. 4901 is in the process of coming out. They're doing both of the big engines out west, the Challengers and the big boys. So that's still alive, and people are bringing it back so the people of the current generations can see what made America. And what our parents and forefathers did.
Well, and many people, they'll say that's what united America, is actually when it met in the western part of the United States, they drove the Golden Spike.
That's right, absolutely.
So again, now what's your hours over here? If somebody wanted to come visit the New Haven Railway Museum, when would they come?
Our summer operating season, which runs from the end of May through basically the end of August, we are open Tuesdays through Sundays. We're not open on Mondays. When we get into the fall season, we're open 2 days a week and on the weekends. When we get into Christmas season, we're running full tilt for about 4.5 or 5 weeks, and then we shut down right after Christmas to do a lot of maintenance and other activities. But the museum is still open for the public. We're just not running trains basically from about the week before Christmas until about the start of March again.
I'm going to put you a little bit on the spot here, but how many of the museums like this are there in America that you would think?
There are quite a few that are our size. There are some big ones in other areas. Most of those are state and private for-profits. We're a nonprofit, so we're kind of average in terms of size. We're probably a little bit bigger in terms of the amount of equipment we have than a lot of museums. And some of the equipment we have is on the National Register of Historic Places and Things, and not every museum has equipment like that. So we're in the mid-range of museums. We see about 35 to 40,000 people a year. Others in other locations see a lot more. The people up at French Lick do about 60,000, but they've got a casino next door, and I wish we had one next door.
Yeah, well, that's absolutely, those casinos come in handy. But again, it's a beautiful place to come to if somebody wants to come down, bring your family. It's a very family-oriented, to come down and see part of America that they may have passed you by, or you may have just seen in movies, as we call it, the old Iron Horse, as we have a festival every year just to celebrate.
Exactly.
So again, part of America is the railroad, and this is in central Kentucky. It's in southern Kentucky here in New Haven. But the Railway Museum is hopefully something that's going to be around for quite some time, and you're still collecting.
We are doing that. We get people probably 2 or 3 times a month who a spouse may have died, or the family is moving and they have their collections and they're looking for a home, or they've been on the model railroad and they can't afford to do it any longer. They're aging out, and we accept those kind of donations, 2 or 3 a month, and we add those to our collection. And this one, part of this was a man that lived in Louisville, worked at Ford Motor Company, and he died. And about a year ago, we got most of that layout. It didn't have a whole lot of scenery or anything on it at that point, but Mrs. Smith was just tickled to death, and she comes down about once a month and brings her relatives to see what her husband had started, and now we've got running.
Well, it's absolutely beautiful, and I'll tell you, somebody had to do a lot of work, and I had a lot of patience to put all this together, because everything is so lifelike. As you got homes, you got, like I said, animals, and just different things throughout the woods and the scenery. So this is something people just absolutely need to come to see.
Well, they do.
Well, Greg, we appreciate you having us here today, and we hope you'll have a lot more success in bringing people down here, because we don't want any secrets. That's one thing we don't want any secrets.
It's a good family place to come, and we look forward to you, and come on down.
All right. So like I said, one of the best places you want to come bring your family and visit. The train that's going by us right here right now, and seeing a lot of other history here that you may not know yourself, or you may want to let your children see, grandchildren, and you don't want to miss out on this. History is becoming so important to us as a lot of it fades away. So for all of us here at Community Focus here on Channel 6 TV, this is Kenny Fogel from the Railway Museum in downtown New Haven, Kentucky. We'll be back in a few minutes here on Community Focus on Channel 6 TV. We'll be right back.